this episode. I guess I want to explain to the viewers my relationship with my imagination as a sort of case study of one human. And moments where I have felt pretty much I've gone throughout the day. Even it happened today, right after, maybe like an hour after I gave the talk before this one. What happened was that for a moment I felt everything pause, and I felt like a film was being downloaded and presented in my mind, where, it's like, let's say you drag and drop files from your desktop to, or let's say you download files, let's say you download an image file, an MP4 file, and you can see it being downloaded. Let's say there's a meter or something underneath, or some sort of gauge, and pretty much what I'm saying is I had a feeling as if something is happening in my inner events, like a film was being played, and I was aware that the film was being played, and I was accessing bits of it as if just knowing that it's there. For some time, I guess, in these talks, when I give these lectures, behind my eyes there's a view of the world I'm in. In this view of the world, sometimes when wondering about the future, I have kind of envisioned like human beings in the future will sit down in nature, right? Like they wouldn't need their phones. Like a human being would be so conscious that it would just sit in the forest, close its eyes, and it would know if intense events are happening on the planet or not. Right? This kind of idea. And in this episode, guys, there isn't really something specific to say. It's more like I'm trying to turn my eyes into words. Imagination appearing out of nowhere in a film-like format, and the moment it's appearing in your inner realm. So I'll give you an example. Let's say right now I'm sitting, I'm on my balcony, just sitting. The microphone's in front of me. A sort of static static awareness to my physical existence. Now, let's say I envision what it would be like for me to eat pizza in a space station. Let's use that as an example. Right now, my eyes are closed as I'm speaking, and I'm envisioning myself hovering in the air, and from a first-person point of view, seeing like a slice of pizza also hovering in the air. What I'm trying to say is that the human being seems to have access to two different rooms of experience. One is kind elevate experiences, even though they won't be as intense. Like I've had dreams in dream states where I have died. Like in the dream, I have died. Something has happened and I've experienced that moment. The most recent dream I had was in the dream I collapsed. So it was pretty much like in the dream, I was just first person point of view, and suddenly this strange feeling of paralysis, and then suddenly after that, a sort of collapse of stability. That was in the dream. I woke up and there was nothing wrong, but the experience had been recorded. So it's kind of like our mind has access to, our intelligence has access to an inner room and an outer room. And what happens in the outer room, it's kind of a final situation, right? It's like that's where the danger is. But what happens in our inner realms, it's as if when we wake up from it, let's say from a dream, it's like there was no danger. Really what the mystery of intelligence is for the human being to wonder how it is happening. Whoever's listening, by the way, welcome. If there's questions, ask away in the chat section. But this episode, it's more kind of like my eyes are trying to understand, the poetry of how my mind has a simultaneous life overlaying my body. In the title, Why I've Written Through Inner Films, the Universe itself communicates to me, and I thought about really what is the purpose of language. Let's say during, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when you look at the educational system, or the Western educational system, it was inspired by the British Empire, and it was inspired during a time of war where educational systems weren't for just, having the individual, enter the economy and be successful. It was more like the educational system was to prepare soldiers for potential wars. And so, let's say at the beginning, let's say in one of it was pretty much this idea a person had to memorize information from one part of the battlefield and run to the other part of the battlefield, and to be incredibly accurately be able to explain what was happening and what had happened. Therefore an emphasis on memorization. As if soldiers had to be tested that they could accurately read the information. And what is knowledge really? You can learn something in one moment, and in other moments you recognize it. Language ultimately, like if somebody reads a book and they read a book really fast, just a second, guys. I'm trying to change the music. What I'm trying to say is that language, when, let's say, you read a book really fast, the way like a person even can read something fast is pretty much a movie is taking place behind their mind. And it is a known fact that the human being remembers a journey better than anything else. People can remember what happened in a film, but if they are given paragraphs to memorize, unless there's the images of those paragraphs are there, it's as if what I'm trying to say is the human being has a more intimate relationship with inner image than inner language and sounds. The purpose of language is to translate the events in reality. And I find maybe this is why religious texts are seen so profound, because they are language that is pointing to that which is beyond reality. human being wants to communicate with another human being, what do? They use language. Right now, I am using language and also a strange coughing language. That's a silly joke, but anyways, what I'm saying is I'm a human being. I'm using language. There's a world behind my eyes. I am trying to convey this world behind my eyes through what is allowed and permitted in front of my eyes in regards to the concepts that the language I'm aware of. So when a human being wants to communicate to another human being, we use a language to translate the images behind our eyes and to convey it that way, right? So what I'm trying to say is a human being communicates to another human being. The question comes, what if there is a universe itself? What if this whole time it has not just been the human being that is alive, but it has also been the world, and we have ignored it because our story mattered more than the mysteries of the cosmos? So let's say that more than the human being is alive, and let's be playful and say it's not just creatures on the planet that is alive. What if the planet is alive? And then the view goes, oh my god, if a planet is alive, what if the solar system is alive? And then we go, oh my god, if the solar system is alive, what if the galaxy is alive? And then eventually we reach our, let's say, containment of what we are the observable view of reality, which is, what if the universe is alive? And you know what's fascinating? When we look at a human being and we see a human being and we say, yeah, that human being is alive, that human being in actuality is an orchestrated inner event. So, let's say if a planetary being wanted to communicate to the human being, it would be like signs from nature, right? Direct influences, or director tips. Like if life was right now, imagine. Okay, I'll say it this way. Right now, I'm a physical human being on Earth. Now I'm trying to imagine, what if this was a film? What if I'm an actor on this next level three-dimensional film set? Okay? What if I'm an actor, on this stage called Earth? Or in this film called Earth? Now, let's say the director, which is not on set, which is not in front of the camera, the director wants to give the actor tips. Or what I'm trying to say is, like when the planet, if I was like sequencing the arguments, it would be like, okay, what if the planet is alive? And then if the planet is alive, how would the planet communicate to the human being? Because the human being is part of the planet. The planet's planetary being's communication with the creature upon it would in some sense be adjusting the creature to its own rhythm. It's as if the planet is already doing something and we have opened our eyes and we think we're just doing what we are doing, but the planet is here. And it's like receiving director notes from the planet. So let's say somebody doesn't know what to do, or there's this incredible story, let me tell it. There was this man who there was this person who felt he was miserable, do you know? Let's say, okay, so it's this story back in the day where Gnostic priests used to walk the streets. And so the story goes that there's this man who he's kind of given up on everything, right? And he makes a prayer. He feels hopeless, useless, and he makes this prayer, and he says, God, give me a sign. Give me a sign what I should do. And then this guy, or I should have started the story differently. There's this guy sitting on the side of the road, on the side of the street, being hopeless, feeling that his life force has no direction. And there's this Gnostic priest that passes by and just stares at him and doesn't do anything and keeps walking by. After the Gnostic priest goes, this guy is still wondering, what should I do with this life of mine? What do I do? What is the meaning? I feel like nothing, right? And so this guy goes for a walk in the forest. When he goes for a walk in the forest, he sees something bizarre. He sees something that, imagine seeing something so unbelievable that you have to cover your eyes upon the first glance. So what he sees is there's a wolf, a full-grown wolf, and the wolf doesn't have legs, doesn't have arms or legs, and it's just in the forest. And this man gets shocked because he doesn't understand how this wolf has been surviving without limbs, right? He suddenly hears a growl. He sees a lion walking towards the wolf, and he quickly jumps up a tree and spectates the event in nature. What he sees is that the lion brings food, and it drops the food in front of the limbless wolf, and the wolf eats it. And keep in mind, this is a guy who had asked for a sign from the universe, and he sees something so bizarre. He sees this, and the way he interprets it, he's like, oh my God, in this useless, I need to continue being useless, and God will suddenly bring me a reward. God will help me out. He identified with the limbless wolf. And he goes back to the road, sits in the same spot. The Gnostic priest is walking back from where he had walked to, and so this guy suddenly catches the Gnostic priest and says, hey man, and he shares the story of seeing the limbless wolf and the lion, and he says, hey man, that had to be a divine sign. Like, how rare is it that somebody makes a prayer, goes to the forest and sees that, right? And this is where the moral of the story comes in, where the Gnostic priest says that what you saw in the forest was a divine sign. It was the greater truth of the realm communicating to you, but you misinterpreted it. That means you thought God showed you that lion feeding a limbless wolf, and you thought you were the wolf. God showed you that, so you realize you are the lion. You see, this is the power that comes when a human being has nothing else other than truth to be. So the guy in the story, the moral of it is that you need to be a lion of your moment. And if your mind has fathomed any sort of ability, do not stand idle, march towards it. So, and that story is an example of a greater force communicating to the individual. Now, let's say behind each of our eyes, even though everybody has their own different inner realm, which is like their own version of the world that they have only access to, like they're a private personal server of reality. know how to say it. In front of our eyes, we have access to a shaped reality. Behind our eyes, we are a shapeless witness. Our relationship with our own shapelessness could suggest how much we're aware that we are being the universe before we're being a human in it. What I have noticed is that if there was a superior intelligence beyond the dimensions of the human being, if human beings use language to communicate to one another and expected language to create films, a superior intelligence would bypass the symbolism conversion and instantly just reveal to you the film. And so the nature of man's mind is that he is a receiver of worlds. Think of it this way: a human being communicates to another human being through a humanized perspective. That means really anything we can somehow relate to the human idea, we can communicate and discuss. Now, if we were wondering how would planets speak to one another, it would be everything like through a planetary archetype, like human beings speak to one another. Human A communicated to human B, and their language was all relevant to was like human events. Now, if a planet, let's say a planetary being wants to communicate with another planetary being, it would be through a planetary event. I don't know, I guess for this episode, what I'm really left with saying to the viewers is that we have understood certain things we can do in front of our eyes, but still what we can do or we can be and receive behind our eyes is a mystery. And I've had an experience where it has been like a film being downloaded into my mind. Now, when I say a film being downloaded into my mind, as if the mind has unconscious sectors, and in those unconscious sectors the download was happening and I just noticed that there was something there. Reality is a beautiful mystery, and the thing about language is that language is like trying to translate an infinite changing system. There can be infinite words till the end of time. Knowledge has no end. That's the point. That's the biggest clue we have, that a human being can learn everything and it still won't be everything. So the purpose of reality, especially for the human station, cannot be knowledge. So let's say somebody wonders, is the purpose of the human being to just know? And we say no, it doesn't suffice. The world is too big to know, too mysterious, too multidimensional to know. Then we think about, is the purpose of this conscious reality, rather than to seek knowledge, is it to work? And there we find an answer. Yes, to in some sense work doesn't mean you have to know everything. It means you need to know enough to work. Then we have, let's say, a view of love. So is the purpose of reality to just love being. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's a passage, and in the passage it says that a liberated being does not avoid his existential duties and responsibilities. It's as if the difference between an enlightened human being and an unenlightened human being, as the Bhagavad Gita depicts, is simply how attached you are to what is happening. And the biggest source in the Bhagavad Gita, it literally states it, that the reason human beings reincarnate as human beings is because of their attachment to the body. And so if we are to go beyond reincarnation, as the ancient yogis attempted, we have to be detached from what we have to do. This doesn't mean we don't do it, but it means while we do it, there is no one there doing it. It's another way of saying, like, if in these talks that I'm giving, I'll use myself as an example, if in these talks that I'm giving, I think that I am a specific person doing something, specific attachment, limitation, but if I just for a moment be like, okay, what is really the experience of the world? And it's an instant. It's a moment being a moment. And how could there be attachment? How could the whole moment being the whole moment? How could there be an attachment? It is the context of life that if realigned to its center frees us. We become free. And what are the examples we have of human beings in my life? I remember seeing it all around. You know, human beings that had more outer freedom and more inner freedom than me. And it was remarkable, you know, it's like being in a room of giants, and little do you know, you will be a giant one day. People who have managed to find through a decency that it is okay to allow the world to be the world, and once that is okay, it is okay to allow the inner realms to occur. It's pretty much like I'm saying, universal beings, their communication shifts the context of the world. But beings in the universe, they are trapped in the context of the universe. And why has attention arrived in this moment? Why does this voice exist now? And if there is a soul, how is it connected to our moments? You know, the mysteries of our realm are not something to avoid. It is something to live through. We are living in a mystery. And everybody's so certain about what they know. subtitle I have written, What to Do with the Films of Imagination. Let's say imagination is access to interdimensional information. Straight up honest answer is that whatever is happening to the human being is unknown. But if we entertain this idea of the flatland, the idea of the flatland was that in this world where squares were living, let's say imagine squares in a 2D world, suddenly there appeared a cube, right? This might be a bit of a stretch of a comparison of this metaphor, but imagine the concept of Christ and imagine the concept of the resurrection. Now imagine that human beings are shapes in a 2D dimension. So imagine there's this town, let's call it Square Town or Squareville. And on this flat land, everybody's a 2D shape. Suddenly this cube arrives and people look at Christ, for example, and they see a square. They see someone like them, but that square is not just the square. And so let's say the resurrection of Christ would be as if that square lifting off from the 2D platform and then another side of the cube being placed on the 2D platform. So I'm saying if a square, like if let's say there's a universal intelligence and there's the human intelligence, now let's imagine the human intelligence being a square and the universal intelligence being a cube. So in some sense there's greater planes, there's parallel realities that are acknowledged. I find that the greater dimensions, their contact with us would be the evocation, the invoking of parallel lives. sometimes it's difficult to tell if before the free will moves, are we human? Are we the presence of a moment of being? Or are we the content of it? So let's say you're a human being who you have received an inner film. And so in the space of your mind where imagination, memory, visualization, all of this dwells, you have perceived a different movement of reality. Now what are the options? The person uses the inner experience to, let's say, expand their on the horizons of their understanding, so you can use an inner film as a sort of experiential accumulation, or what you can do is you can communicate the inner film, which is what I'm doing now, or you can watch it leave. And that's the brilliant thing about our mind, that from the beginning of the day till the end of night, it's like moments where the mind can choose to act upon what it sees. It's a very strange feeling to have thought you're something your whole life and then realize what you thought was life was something else. That means, what if we're all living a multidimensional life right now? What if in this dimension I'm a human being named Amin, using the giving a talk, but it's like just like how in cyberspace I'm Mr.Within, but in reality I'm Amin. It's like I once had a dream in 2012-13, and this dream was very life-changing. And in the dream I got a glimpse of a being that didn't look human, that was in some sense sitting in a chair, right, in some strange chair. This instant glimpse, it was like I got a feeling as if like we are a spectrum of beings in different dimensions and we don't realize it. Right now, I'm a physical entity. When I close my eyes, I notice I'm not just a physical entity. But when I wonder about what else could be happening beyond the container of my moment, I reach a point where I wonder about my unknown life. It's kind of like living in a known world, but having a nostalgia of an unknown life in it. Right now, the human intelligence is engaged with information, right? We're obsessed with information. People are killing each other over information, And sometimes information even saves lives. And really, what is healing? It's like having access to more angles of perception where, there was a worthiness beyond what you thought. It's important to love the world, but if that love does not hold within within it the freedom to understand the world, then in some sense it is a conditional love. You know, it's like the person is very loving and kind, but suddenly when they suddenly don't have some things, they become cruel and vicious. You know, some people wonder about where they will go after this life, and there are some who wonder what will they be. How will intelligence hold itself? Will ideologies echo as realities after this life, or if a person is free from ideology? It's another way of saying free from the story of self. And what would that, let's say, storyless reality be? Imagine one day human beings woke up, okay, and they could feel everything the human species, any member of the human species, was feeling. Imagine the next day they woke up and they could feel everything that was happening on the planet. Imagine the next day after people woke up and they knew everything that was happening in the galaxy. It's like you would no longer be a human being. Our human identity is based on the quality of information we're receiving. If we receive more than this, if collective states of mind are realized in the future, there would come the responsibility of a collective being for their individualism, not an individual for their collective. Right now we're individuals trying to be good people, thinking that we're going to save the world, not realizing that we have to feel the world before we can even access its potential. So whoever you are listening to me, we're living at that time in human history where the individual human archetype is evolving, and it's evolving through an experiential reversion back into the unknown. And from the unknown you will discover all the ways that your eyes could open to the possibility. That means if the body's death happens in one dimension, right? But the mind's death is like all the ways that life was perceived, or will they fade? And the question comes, what was here to even die? And could it be that our universal self is the greatest joy and freedom of the individual, not the suffering, not the misery, not the ignorance? It's as if we have thought we are not worthy of a better world, but then you imagine realizing you have been in this whole time. Just like how they invented the light bulb, the idea was there, somebody just had to do it. Could it be that there's so many different advanced ways that human beings can live, and it's just one of those moments where we have to invent the possibility of the behavior to receive the moment? going to go into a quote tunnel of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi quotes. He says only a new seed will yield a new crop. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says we do not think of life, we live it. We do not think of ourselves too much. We do not think of others too much. We just behave in a natural state. Balance is the natural state of life because the basic characteristic of the fundamental element of life, pure consciousness, is complete balance. What makes one luckier is the good that he has done to others. It comes back to him. A man doesn't become lucky by doing wrong. He becomes lucky because he has done good to others, and that good comes back to him, and now he is lucky. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says the whole effect of activity is to enrich the feeling of the other. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says when the mind is opening to that unbounded pure awareness, the field of pure intelligence, simultaneously the body is losing stresses and strains, and thereby the clouds that were hindering the use of inner, full creative intelligence and action. I'll read that again. Simultaneously the body is losing stresses and strains, and thereby the clouds that were hindering the use of inner, full creative intelligence and action, they begin to wither away. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, see the job, do the job, stay out of the misery. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, a loving heart, a heart full of love, is the precious essence of human life. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, perfect health means no weaknesses anywhere. That is, no weakness should remain in the body or in the mind or in the relationship between the body and the mind. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says, do not base your life on the likings and dislikings or whims of others. What you are in life, whether you enjoy or suffer, it is your own responsibility. Be regular in your meditation and do not postpone for a latent day your striving for God consciousness. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi says the self of everyone, the Atma of everyone, the transcendental field of reality of everyone is the same in everyone. Whether the body calls itself an American, German, Indian, or Chinese, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go into quotes from somebody called, which I've never read his quotes before, Brahmananda Saraswati. He says, as a painter paints pictures on a wall, the intellect goes on creating the world and the heart always. Brahmananda Saraswati says, yoga is the state where you are missing nothing. I'm going to read the quotes of somebody named Adi Shankara. Do not be proud of wealth, people, relations, and friends or youth. All these are snatched by time in the blink of an eye. Giving up this illusory world to know and attain the Supreme. Adi Shankara says the world, like a dream full of attachments and aversions, seems real until the awakening. Adi Shankara says reality can be experienced only with the eye of understanding, not just by a scholar. Adi Shankara says, do not look at anybody in terms of friend or foe, brother or cousin. Do not fritter away your mental energies in thoughts of friendship or enmity. Seeking the self everywhere, be amiable and equal-minded towards all, treating all alike. Adi Shankara says, knowing that I am different from the body, I need not neglect the body. It is the vehicle that I use to transact with the world. It is the temple which houses the pure self within. Adi Shankara says, even after the truth has been realized, there remains that strong, obstinate impression that one is still an ego, the agent and experiencer. This has to be carefully removed by living in a state of constant identification with the supreme non-dual self. Full awakening is the eventual ceasing of all the mental impressions of being an ego, and it's another way of saying that if the inner realms of one was not their ally, when your mind, guys, becomes your ally, it releases you from itself. So what it is that it's like an unknown potential And imagine we are in a known actuality of a reality, but simultaneously, if there's no attachment to the idea of a self in reality, we are the unknown potential of every moment. The mind thinks that its energy is dependent on the body, but what is the body's energy dependent on? We say the world, but where is the world? It is in the mind. It's hilarious. It's as if the edge of our visual life is the presence of our inner life. Now, if a universal intelligence, so the argument would be something like, okay, behind every person's eyes, there's a part that it's like we're all being the same universal moment. That means behind our eyes, let's just for a moment entertain that we're all behind our eyes, behind our objective outer realm, subjective inner realm, we're all like being the universe, like a moment in this, the same moment in the universe. So it would be as if like truth fragmented, wondering about where truth is. So it would be as if how would a singular collective moment of being communicate to an individual, and it does it by bringing in new events for the individual, but also reminding the individual of experiences of universal being. So whoever you are, there's a type of spirituality that follows stories. There's archetypes of, angels, guides, time travelers, extraterrestrials, whatever your mind is, shaped with the clay of image. But on some level, the way the universe communicates to the individual is that it brings moments where the individual is being universal. So what we are really looking in regards to spiritual practice, in regards to mystical truth, is that moment where all of our individual life's karma, and it becomes inseparable with how the collective position, the cosmic activity is occurring. When we notice the nature of this inseparability of how we're being an individual and the whole moment, at the same time, one is led to a station of faith. And faith in what? Faith in the moment of being. It literally surpasses egoic ideological thinking. So if before the person had to accumulate as much information possible, then make a sort of calculated decision, this would be as if you are being the moment where all the information accessible to you is happening. And by being in that moment, there is no space to know. So what I'm trying to say is that what we are, we instantly know. Like whoever's listening to me right now, do you know you have a body? It's like, yeah, it's instantaneous. You're being the body. So now imagine you are experiencing a moment where you are being a universal being, and your attachment to your voice and name in the middle of the actions of your life, you realize, what is it that's here? It's not an individual. This whole time, our egos make us think or try to, add significance. We try to be important in the world, not realizing the important view that we are all being the world. Deep down, I ask myself, what is my desire of desires? What is this ultimate? What is it? A feeling, my ultimate desire? Is it an image? Is it a view? And my mind or my intelligence strategized as a sort of response between dimensions that are simultaneously happening. So it's as if in my physical life, I think it doesn't matter in this life or any other life where I'm a physical entity, it would be as if to advance the potential of the physical entity, right? So when you're a creature in a world, it's like the advancement of the creature is the meaning of the world. But when you are the space where the creature in the world is happening, then the purpose of reality is not the advance. It's as if like in the outer realms we built an advanced civilization, but in the inner realms we are already being the most advanced state of being. Because the idea comes, How do we build an advanced civilization if we are not advanced? And I think this is the secret that nature has been indirectly trying to reveal to the human species, that in your faith, that an advanced moment is being here, there is an ability to trust advanced reality. The future generations will see our blind spot just like we can see the blind spot of the past generations. And because they will see our blind spot, it suggests to us that we have blind spots that can be overcome now. And so I think really what the scholars of every generation are doing, they're trying to see, like the smartest people are trying to see as many blind spots to themselves and trying to remedy these blind spots, to be conscious of them, so that the future generations can advance beyond our limitations. That means it's this hilarious thing that the problems of your life must be completed in this life. And the way to that completion is either you're a character in a story seeking a paradise, or you're a paradise where the characters in the story are found. That means it's like, what is the distance to freedom? Could it be instant? I'll continue with the quote tunnel. Adi Shankara says, curb your senses and your mind and see the Lord within your heart. The context of this episode would be like see the universal, unchanging moment where energy dances on. Adi Shankara says, as gold purified in the furnace loses its impurity and achieves its own true nature, the mind gets rid of the impurities of the attributes of delusion, attachment, and purity through meditation, and attains reality with a capital R. That means it's like enlightenment is not just like a power boost. Enlightenment is to find the original earth. If there is a chance you're not in it, you haven't found it. So what it is that the most original state in the being leads to the most original result. The meaning of life is not to fit into the mold of what the past wants to see, but rather to realize a new opportunity. Our eyes, anybody listen to me, your eyes have never existed until your lifetime. The whole cosmos awaits the return of our experiential journey. Adi Shankara says, when your last breath arrives, grammar can do nothing. Adi Shankara says, loud speech, profusion of words, and possessing skillfulness in expounding scriptures are merely for the enjoyment of the learned. They do not lead to liberation. And I understand what he means. He's saying, like, it's like you can talk about skydiving, but it's like the skydiving, the actual skydiving where reality comes. For there's so many history books of enlightened beings trying to say something, right? But it's like, what is that enlightenment? And it's an experience. So an experience is not something somebody else can tell you, right? So the direct experiential approach would be to witness the content of your mind and be like a perfectionist, where you're wondering what is even moving in every single moment. That means we human beings have been obsessed with the idea of self, but we have not been obsessed with how the idea of self is happening. If we care to wonder about the workings of our own mind, we may discover something about our nature that previously wasn't authorized. So wherever you are, wonder about the eyes that have opened for the first time ever. For what is freedom? Would a free being have a concept of freedom? Would an enlightened being have the concept of enlightenment? Would they even need to? Like right now, imagine like we are already in the most advanced state. Let's say right now everybody's soul is at the peak of being. Right? as if right now we're all, or this might be bizarre thing to say, but imagine if Adam and Eve, poetically from an Abrahamic theological perspective, they never fell, they never ate the apple, they never took knowledge, because we are born perfect, right? It's as if before mankind had sinned, in the religious narrative, he hadn't sinned. There was nothing wrong, right? As if all of the world's manifestation from the Abrahamic sense is like some dude made a mistake. Of course, I'm being playful. Shankara says, to be free from bondage, the wise person must practice discrimination between oneself and the ego self. By that alone, we become full of joy, recognizing self as pure being, consciousness, and bliss. This is really the term Satchit Ananda. And you know what it is? It's as if because we're looking for something, we think what we are doesn't possess what we're looking for. Imagine someone sitting on a remote controller looking for the remote control. All they have to do is just notice where they are and they'll find it. Adi Shankara says, give up identification with this mass of flesh as well as with what thinks it's a mass. Both our intellectual imaginations recognize your true self as undifferentiated awareness, unaffected by time, past, present, or future, and enter peace. And when you enter that peace, then you can use time, right? It's as if something is forbidden until there is the maturity to know it, right? So if there are greater dimensions that are forbidden to mankind's mind, it's because it is not mature. Think of it like a R-rated film or something for a kid. Once there is the understanding, the reality can be accessed. Adi Shankara says, the treasure I have found cannot be described in words. The mind cannot conceive it. What a sentence. Wow. What a sentence. Language is honestly beautiful because the world is incredible and language is trying to depict it. All I'm trying to say is that we're using language to communicate to one another. What if when it comes to collective intelligences, they use the films of life, right? That means, is it easier to tell someone a few words, or if you were a higher dimensional being, is it easier to show them? Right? Is it easier to give the experience, or is it like here? This is hilarious. Right now, okay, I got it. So I was using the example of skydiving. So if a human being wants to explain to another human being skydiving, they tell a story, right? But the story doesn't give the person the actual experience. Now, if there was a higher dimensional being, let's say a cube wanted to communicate with a square, it would just immediately give the experience. So really what spiritual experiences are actually discussions with higher dimensions. And this sentence from Adi Shankara is honestly one of the most beautiful sentences I've heard. The treasure I have found cannot be described in words. The mind cannot conceive it. As if there is an instantaneous truth that no dualistic language system can explain. So whoever you are, have you ever wondered if you have been instantaneously search for freedom, you who have looked upon faces and tried to look for eyes that are glowing, I will tell you what if the moment is. I gave a public talk once, and the way I ended the public talk was that your real guru is your moment of being, for it has been with you from the beginning. Adi Shankara says, you never identified yourself with the shadows cast by your body, or with its reflection, or with the body you see in a dream or your imagination. Therefore, you should not identify yourself with this living body either. This is extreme yogic mysticism for you guys. Adi Shankara says, what is inquiry into the truth? It is the firm conviction that the self, capital S, is real, and all other than that, the capital T, is unreal. Adi Shankara says, just as a stone, a tree, a straw, a grain, a mat, a cloth, a pot, and so on, when burned, are reduced to earth from which they came, so the body and its sense organs, on being burned in the fire of knowledge, become knowledge and are absorbed in Brahman, and darkness in the light of the sun. Uses this metaphor in his poetry, where he kind of explains, he gives this metaphor for the human soul as if it's a candle flame, and imagine a candle flame with a sunbeam hitting it. It's if both lights are kind of like. Adi Shankara says each thing tends to move towards its own nature. I always desire happiness, which is my true nature. My nature is never a burden to me. Happiness is never a burden to me, whilst sorrow is. Adi Shankara says, from a clear knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, all the goals of human existence become fulfilled. Bhagavad Gita is the manifest quintessence of all the teachings of the Vedic scriptures. Adi Shankara says, like the appearance of silver in mother of pearl, the world seems real until the self, the underlying reality, is realized. So, okay, I'll read a few more quotes. He says, space seems broken and diverse because of the many forms in it. Remove the forms and pure space remains. So too with the omnipresent self. That's the universal self I'm pointing to. Adi Shankara says, thus one should know oneself to be the nature of existence, consciousness, bliss, such as Ananda. It means truth is not something defined. It's a realization about how nature is being. Adi Shankara says, all the manifested world of things and beings are projected by imagination upon the substratum, which is the eternal, all-pervading Vishnu, whose nature is existence-intelligence, just as the different ornaments are all made out of the same gold. Adi Shankara says, but the Jiva, the living being, is endowed with ego and his knowledge is limited, whereas Ishwar is without ego and is omniscient. Adi Shankara says, the witness of the three states of consciousness, waking, dream, and deep sleep, and of the nature of existence -- consciousness -- bliss is the self. So, in a manner of, let me see how I could simplify this. It's kind of like Adi Shankara is saying, when you notice that you are aware in your waking state, when you notice that even in a dream state you are aware of what's happening, and in deep sleep there is an awareness, but it's not a conditional awareness. So it's like to be aware of deep sleep is to be aware of something that has no shape, so there's no content, but the knowing is there. And then he's saying, when you've realized that you are the essence of your awareness is revealing these three states, and you also realize that conscious existence is bliss. What does that mean? That means consciousness is connected to existence, and the moment there is an awareness that consciousness is existing, the bliss is the potential, a sort of infinitude potential. So what it is is like realizing you are the unknown potential, of truth, witnessing all the simulations of it. It's another way of saying when you realize your presence is freedom, your personality is seeking freedom, and your body is in some sense a lantern in the darkness. It's the lantern. The body is actually pretty cool, you know. And it's like, for let's say like Tony Stark stepped into the Iron Man suit. It's like an intelligence that was in space became a biological entity. Now it's remembering. It's remembering that the freedom of being before the chains of what we do, shackles. I think to take away from this episode for the viewers is that wonder about the nature of your mind, wonder about how it's working. If there are moments where you can notice, let's say you're someone who can discriminate between your inner realms and outer realms, there may I don't know if this will happen, but I have a feeling it will happen to a majority of human beings, where there will come moments where in their inner realm an event will move faster than the outer realm. When an inner realms moves faster than the outer realms, the body automatically becomes gentle. And really what, for example, you see these yogis going into samadhi states, what it is that the mind is moving so fast with a hidden trust of its own being, that when it moves beyond faster than the body's like in the passenger seat. So it's as if like, you know, it's kind of like you were a body moving your mind. Now you have become the presence of your mind, the presence of your intelligence, and the trust, instantaneous trust in that moves everything. We are mysterious beings in a mysterious world, and we deserve to wonder about what else we can do. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope this episode was helpful. Much blessings and namaste.